This is your math gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic. This is example 20 of solving an equation containing fractions, and so we're going to do this problem on this video. There's more than one way to solve almost any equation, and especially one with fractions. But I personally find the easiest way to solve an equation that has fractions is by multiplying both sides of the equation by the same number, the least common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and do it that way. And you could do that with an equation because that's one of the things you could do with equations, multiply both sides by the same thing. All right, so my way of doing it, a little unorthodox, is just putting braces around the whole thing, and I'm going to multiply all the terms by 12. So I have to distribute the 12 to all the terms on each side of the equation. So this gives me 12 times x over 12 minus 12 times 3/4 and 12 times -2. And when you do this, since you're multiplying by the least common denominator, that should cancel with any of the terms that have fractions in it. So the 12s cancel there. 3 goes into 12 3 times. And nothing cancels on the right because there are no fractions. So this will give me x minus 9 equals -24. So I start off with an equation that has fractions, and by multiplying by the least common denominator, I get an equation that doesn't have fractions, which is much easier to solve. So now we can add 9 to both sides. Be careful with your arithmetic. You're adding a positive and a negative number. So since -24 is going to outweigh the positive 9, it's going to be negative, and then 24 minus 9 is 15. And that's our answer. So let's go ahead and check that. So we're going to plug in -15 for x. So I have -15/12 minus 3/4. And now this is not an equation. This is just an expression. So we have to simplify it. You can't multiply both sides by anything because there aren't two sides. It's not an equation. Now, it's true that you could simplify. You could reduce -15/12, but if you did, you get a 3 in the denominator, and you need to get a common denominator anyway. So in this case, it's actually easier to leave this not reduced and multiply the 3/4 times 3 over 3. So you'll get a common denominator of 12. If you had reduced it, you would have gotten -5/3 minus 3/4, and then you'd have to go back and multiply this first fraction by 4 over 4 again, and this one by 3 over 3. And that's okay. It would just take you one extra step. I just kind of looked ahead and thought and noticed that reducing it didn't make it any easier. So let's see, we've got -15/12 minus 9/12. And of course that's the same thing as plus a -9. So we have -15 plus -9, which will be -24/12. And then we have a negative divided by a positive, which is negative, and 24 divided by 12 is 2. So the left-hand side simplifies to -2. And the right-hand side, it's already simplified. There wasn't anything to do, so it checks. So our answer here must be correct. So that's the answer to the problem, x equals -15. And the formal way of doing it is putting -15 in the braces to show that's the solution set. All right, so the way we solved this was by multiplying both sides by the least common denominator. Let's do it another way. So here's how we solved it the first way. But you don't have to. You could start off with the same problem, x over 12 minus 3/4 equals -2. And instead you can just isolate the x term, which is right here, x over 12, that's the term that has the x in it, by just, oops, a little too far. I'm in a little trouble here, technical difficulties, there we are. So we can add 3/4 to both sides. And I'm going to put the plus 3/4 over here, because it's hard to do -2 plus 3/4. I might need to get a common denominator. That's what I'm thinking about over here. So on the left-hand side, I'll have x over 12, right? But on the right-hand side, I have to do -2 plus 3/4. So I'm going to get a common denominator. -2 could be written as well, you want a common denominator of 4, right? So you would have to multiply this by 4 over 4. So that would give me -8/4. So that's the same thing as -8/4, right? -2 is the same thing as -8/4. And so then when I add on the right side, -8/4 plus 3/4 is going to be -5/4. Okay, so by not multiplying both sides by the least common denominator, I have to do a little bit more work with getting common denominators, being careful with my positive and negative signs, etc. I think people are more prone to make mistakes doing it this way, but it certainly works. Just be careful. If you prefer to do that, you can. So then I need to solve for x. There's a lot of ways to solve for x. I'm going to say, well, I have x divided by 12, so how about if I just multiply by 12? Or you might be multiplying by the least common denominator here, which happens to be 12. So it looks the same. So my 12s cancel. And we get x equals, and then over here, 4 goes into 12 3 times, I still end up with -5 times 3, which is -15. So that's another way to solve it. And that's just two ways you might solve this equation. There are other approaches. You might use proportions to solve once you get this x over 12 equals -5 over 4 if you know how to do that, etc. And we already checked it, so we know that x equals -15 is the correct answer. This is your Math Gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic.